Good evening. My name is Wilfred Crespo, and tonight I'm going to be speaking about Actus Reus. Also, please disregard the noise in the background, the brightness of this location, and as you can see, there is a computer screen reflecting in my glasses. I'm currently at work, and I have to have all this up and running in order to do my job. So, in order for a crime to take place, there are three separate components that need to be taken into consideration. The first one is mens rea, which is Latin for guilty mind, and is essentially stating intention. It was chosen by the criminal to act in the way that makes it a crime. The second component to an act of crime is the actus reus, our discussion topic for the night, which is basically the criminal action. And then the last one is concurrence, which is just basically stating that both actus reus and mens rea occurred at the same time, thus creating the crime. Now, as stated in the book, actus reus, which is Latin for evil act or evil action, is the physical component of the crime. It's the action that actually makes a crime occur. As is noted in the book, you can't have just a crime through intention. The example given is shooting a gun. You're not committing a criminal act with the intention of shooting a gun unless you physically pull the trigger. You can't plan a crime and be guilty of a crime. You have to act a crime to be guilty of a crime. The second most important thing about actus reus is that it needs to be voluntary. It needs to be a crime that you, the criminal, has chosen to act on. If you are coerced or forced into a criminal act, you technically can't be held liable for it because you did not make that decision. You were being coerced into it. Now, because actus reus is a physical action, it obviously requires movement in order to qualify. But the important thing to note is that it doesn't need to be a large-scale, violent movement at all times. It doesn't need to be the stabbing or the pulling of the trigger. Say you're committing a hate crime by using hateful speech. If your mouth is moving, it's enough to warrant actus reus. It doesn't need to be a stab. It could be something small, almost imperceptible. So let's take a step back and consider what constitutes voluntary again. Now, the important note in the book is that voluntary is specifically if you had the option to act differently in a non-criminal way. As stated in the book, it's say that you light a cigarette to smoke, but you fall asleep and it starts a fire. You had the option to not light that cigarette. You could have avoided this criminal act. But in the same breath, you have to take notice, if you willingly light that cigarette and use it to start a fire, that's a completely different reus actus. They're both technically the same result, but it has to be treated differently because one was voluntary with no intention and the other was voluntary with intention. Sorry about the change of clothes. I was just reminded that I did not have a name tag, so now I have a name tag. Anyway, so let's put this all into a hypothetical that will maybe clear up actus reus a little more. Let's say that you and a friend decide to commit burglary. Obviously, it's just the intention, no actus reus yet. But you and your friend then act upon this decision. You go to a third unaffiliated person's house and you break in through a window. You are now committing a crime voluntarily. You have chosen to make this action and you have chosen to commit the crime. Now let's take a step back and say that your friend coerced you into it, demanded you do it, and threatened you. No longer are you considered liable because now you are being forced to commit this crime. Your friend is now the actus reus, where you are technically not culpable. But say that during this break-in, you and your friend confront the owner of the house, and in a panicked moment, you pull the trigger. Yes, you were forced into this situation by your friend through threat of your life, but you took it upon yourself to aim the gun and pull the trigger on this innocent third party. Actus reus again, you are now culpable for murder. It's tricky. There's a lot of different gymnastics to it, but the main point is that even though you were coerced originally into doing this, you took the voluntary action of taking that life, and that puts you very much in the scope of the law.